if you are coming for graduate school in the US, you should not be paying for your education because, like, typically that's
Yes.
what I say. For undergraduates, I understand if you are paying for your education, but once you're a graduate student, and like with being a graduate student, I mean like masters and PhD, you should not be paying for your education. I started my research that day because I was just like, I needed to find answer. I was tired of like talking to people. When you are looking to study abroad, you need to like be very passionate about it and like determination. I used to say desperation as well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name remains Comfort Doladayo Adegbero, and if you're yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly do so by hitting the subscribe button, like and share all the value that you've been getting from this channel. So today, we are going the US way. So I have on board with me Olayinka, and she'll be sharing with us some tips on how to, make graduate study possible in the US. So if you're interested in this content, just stay tuned and watch out for all the values we'll be delivering to you guys today. Welcome back, and thank you, Ola, for being on board today. And just to start, would you like to please introduce yourself? You've been in the US for how long? Tell us about that, your name, what you're doing, the school, and anything interesting about you. We'd love to know that. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Ola. I think I just prefer people to call me Ola. My name is
Okay.
Ola. But I also go by Olayinka. I came to the US in 2021. Yeah, 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So I had my master's degree at Miami University, Ohio, because I know kind of like people confuse Miami University with Miami, Florida, but it's Miami University.
Oh yeah, I was about asking that. Is it the same spelling?
It's the same spelling. So like that's like a story for another day. But like Miami University, like in Miami. So like the Miami, Florida took that name.
It's fake.
Yeah. But anyways, currently I'm not a student. I'm currently working. So I work at Augustana University. And yeah, it's been good so far. And I'm so excited that, Comfort invited me to come talk to y'all. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So without wasting much time, I have some questions that I'll be asking you, and maybe from there we could have questions that would also come up based on the discussion so far. The first thing I'll be asking is, how did you get to study in the US? Like you came in 2021 and you were able to like successfully complete your master's, your grad studies, and was it through self-sponsorship or you came through a scholarship? And like, would you walk us through that process?
Yeah, so I know like typically I tell people that if you are coming for graduate school in the US, you should not be paying for your education because like typically that's what I say. For undergraduates, I understand if you are paying for your education, but once you're a graduate student, and like with being a graduate student, I mean like masters and PhD, you should not be paying for your education. So for me, before I started like the whole process, like it's always been my dream to like study in the US. I had a friend in the US, so like I would always ask, like, walk me through the process, but like they kind of like add like discouraging words for me because for my bachelor's, I studied English language and education, which is not like a course. So for me, it was either like I did like masters in something related to English, or I did masters in something related to education. And for me, at that particular point in time, I kind of like knew that English wasn't my way because I was very much interested in education. So to him, it was like, you're not STEM, like there's nothing, like just
there's no funding. I would also think that too.
Yeah, for like non-STEM. And so like that kind of like discouraged me because when I was in like my final year, like I was so pumped up about it. So that kind of like discouraged me, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to like stay back. And it was like, okay, if I'm able to like get my master's in Nigeria, maybe because most PhD in the US is like full funding, maybe I can get to come for PhD. So like that was my plan until, one day, I think it was not even like it wasn't like I had the passion. What made me have the passion for it was I went for my graduate exam at Unilag, and that was the day I decided that I'm done with the education system. Yeah. So we went for the exam, and like, how you will feel like, when somebody comes back from the exam, like they would rest because, you've been studying. They would rest, but like, no, like I started my research that day because I was just like, I needed to find answers. I was tired of like talking to people. I needed to find answers.
Find out like, for yourself. Yeah.
For myself, because that exam, like, I was just like, this is trash. I'm not abusing Nigeria, but like, this is trash. So like, I just needed to like find answers for myself. When you are looking to study abroad, you need to like be very passionate about it, and like determination. I used to say desperation as well, because at this particular point in time, I was like, okay, there's nothing I want to do in my life. So it's either this abroad works out.
There's nobody to encourage you. You have to encourage yourself.
So I was like, is it that this abroad works out or nothing else? So like, I was so dedicated to it. So that dedication led me to like, I started researching. This was in 2019. So I started researching, kind of like looking for schools by myself. And I actually found out that like there are a lot of schools out there that would fund, though I'm a non-STEM student. So that's how it started for me. So like, I spent months researching, because like I said, I didn't have anybody to like walk me through the process of, okay, this is how to research. This is how you can do it. So I kind of like, I think I spent like 3 months researching.
Wow.
Because I had that exam in July and I submitted my first application in October. So July, August, September, I was using those months to like research and all. So yeah, and then I submitted the application, and I don't want to like go into details until you
the details.
Yeah, so I am, but like I just said that to say that like no matter the course you want to study, and I actually studied education. Like I got what I wanted. I studied education and I still came fully funded. So
yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. You came here without using your own money. You got like a funding. So what does like the application for funding generally look like in the US? Like, do you have to write statement of purpose, or do you have to write essays? I got the Commonwealth scholarship previously to the UK, and I had to write lots of essays on developmental blah 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 blah, all those community development things and all. So is it like that also for the US, or how do like the application process generally go?
Okay, yeah. So something I would say is like the US is like a very generous country. So they have a lot of funding available, and it's welcoming to international students. Now that one is quote and unquote. It is welcoming to international students in the sense that like most universities will want international students, because there's a fund they get if they have like international students in their school. So that for international students, particularly students from Africa to come, like they need to fund them. So when you are applying, there's no separate application for like funding or whatever. However, what the difference is that, like how other countries, you get scholarship and you're not doing anything. With the US, you are doing something for the university. They call it assistantship. So you are doing something for the university, like maybe helping teach a class, maybe you are researching, or maybe you are like an administrative person. In my own case, I was like an administrative person. So in that way, so the department that I got assistantship with was the one that paid for my tuition, and they were giving me money per month for upkeep.
Interesting.
So so that's the way it is. And like, I didn't have to do like anything extra other than what I did for admission. But I do recognize that each school I have like different requirements. And what I mean by different requirements is not necessarily going to be like different from what you did when you were applying for admission. Because normally if you're applying for admission, you write statement of purpose, you still submit your resume, you will still send your transcripts and all. And it's the same process for like assistantship. Why some schools on their portal would say, oh, application for funding is not different. Some schools will tell you application for funding is different. Because I remember there was a particular school that applied to them that said before I could apply for funding, I needed to have gotten admission. So I got the admission first, then I was sending just my cover letter and my resume for funding, but it was like a separate application. The only thing I needed to write more was like a cover letter to show my interest in the position that they listed. So that was just most of the schools. I'm going to like maybe 80% of the schools would have it that assistantship and like admission come together. If not that my own course is kind of like even different, where I had to do interview. For most people that are in STEM courses, the admission is automatically coming with funding. Either there's a scholarship, is like, okay, we are not doing anything for the school, or there's a fellowship, which mostly the fellowship is PhD students really benefit from fellowship, because people don't really do PhD yet. So for you to do PhD, like it's a lot. So they just fund you to do PhD or assistantship. That is how it is for STEM. But like non-STEM, most of the time you either have to like do interview for them to see, okay, this person qualifies for the assistantship. But it's not anything crazy. It's just like the normal application material.
Yeah, that's so nice. But then I've heard of things like writing code emails to, professors. And like now you mentioned that 80% is through like when you apply for the normal admission. So it means that if you're not getting admission from that school, they're not willing to fund you or sponsor you. That's the meaning. But how do you go about writing code emails? I've heard of situations like that. Is that also relating to applying for admission, or is just a process of getting funding normally?
Okay, so I'll correct something you just said. If a school gives you admission, there are some people that they get admission and they didn't get funding.
Oh,
People
okay.
like that they get admission and they don't get funding. So it's just like, okay, we want to admit 10 students, but we can only fund 8. So like, you're lucky to be in the funding process, but they will put you in the pool. That's why some schools will tell you apply by this deadline to be considered for
funding. Yeah.
Of funding. Considered. It doesn't necessarily mean that
you will be selected.
So that is why you also need to pray that grace is following you. Because I had some people I had a friend that when they came to the school, like they didn't have funding and they had to like start hustling their way to get funding, because particularly the school I went to, it's like a very expensive school. So they had to find and hustle their way out. So like getting admission doesn't necessarily mean that you get scholarship, but it just puts you in the pool of people that will get scholarship. And with prayer, also like your application material has to be strong. There are thousands of people out there that are applying as well. So like your application material has to be strong and needs to show like a genuine interest for the course and whatever. And then for the code email part, so like for the code email part, it's particularly to my STEM brothers and sisters. If you are not STEM, you don't need to code email anybody. I didn't have to like send email to anybody to do whatever. And when it comes to code emailing, even for the people that are STEM, it's particularly for people that have a lab attached to their course.
Okay.
So for all these like life courses, like agri science, like animal, whatever, like
chemistry,
biology, even chemistry, sometimes even chemistry, you don't need to write a code email, but some people do just to be sure. And if you need to write a code email, it should be listed on the school's website. Yeah, like you need to find a supervisor on your own. Why some schools will be the one to match you up with the supervisor. And example of that is like my school for chemistry, you don't need to write a code email to anybody because they'll be the one to match you up by themselves. And the reason why you need to write that code email is to get a spot in their lab. So what this means is each professor, they have individual research interest. So for me, for instance, I might be interested in why is there mosquito in Africa? Why some other person might be interested in why is there mosquito in the US? Do you get what I'm saying? So for me to say, okay, I want you to come to my lab, that is my own research interest. That is what the people in my lab are doing. So for me to say, okay, I want you to come to my lab, you need to send me an email showing an interest in the research I am doing. Not just saying, oh, you want admission, because admission is a different thing. Even you code emailing somebody and the person is saying, I'm going to admit you to my lab, and them admitting you to their lab means you will join their research group and they in turn pay your tuition and give you monthly stipend. It still does not guarantee admission. I've heard a lot of people that are saying, yes, okay, this professor gave me a spot in their lab, but eventually I didn't get the admission, because they are not the one deciding the admission. They are just deciding the funding, in the sense that, okay, they have said, okay, if you get the admission, I'm giving you a spot in my lab. And that spot means they will pay your tuition, you will join their research group, and as a result, they'll give you monthly stipend. So that's just the difference. Code emailing, but it's not everybody, because I think a lot of people just make that mistake of like somebody wants to study accounting and you're code emailing somebody. You don't need to code email. Just you're putting all that effort into your application material. But if you ever get confused, I do tell people like reach out to the academic office coordinator. Reach out to the program coordinator. Like each website, they have like somebody you can reach out to. If you ever get confused on, okay, should I code email someone or should I not code email someone? Just reach out to the program coordinator and ask them for, okay, what is the application process like and what is the funding process like? And they will direct you, because I'm always like, these people are getting paid to do their job. So you need to help them. And there's nothing like a bad question. There's nothing like a stupid question. So that's
one thing that I've also noticed abroad. You can always ask questions and they would respond to you. Yeah. So that's very much valuable. So just like to summarize what you just said now, the first step if you're trying to like get funding to study abroad is do your research from the school's website. Maybe look for different schools, streamline it to your departments or maybe program of study that you're interested in. Then maybe from there, check the information on the website and decide whether it is admission only. And from there, it's back up with funding, or maybe you have to code email a professor, right? Okay, and I think another thing is sometimes I see posts like, we're looking for a graduate researcher, blah, 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 this. Can you talk a bit about that?
Okay, so when they make posts like that, either they don't have like a lot of applicants for the course. There are so many schools in the US, like even in the States, you might have like thousands of schools. Even in a small city, there might be like 3 schools in there. So a lot of people are applying. And okay, so for instance, maybe this year they have like in mind that they are going to like admit 8 people and fund those 8 people. Eventually, 10 people applied. Maybe they even gave 10 people admission. The fact that they gave you admission does not mean you will choose the school. So at the end of the day, they were only able to like receive 5 people, but they still have 3 spots, because if they don't fill those spots, some people still need to do those jobs. If not, the professors exactly. So the professors will be frustrated. So that is when they now bring it out to say, okay, we are looking for someone. I've even heard of somebody that said, like, I referred another Nigerian to this course because the professor told them that, okay, like, you are leaving and I need somebody to fill your spot. Do you
fill this spot?
Exactly. Do you have somebody? And the person was like, oh, I know someone. Before you even like open this out.
That's a good one, really. Wow.
Like, I know someone and I can recommend the person to you. So the person recommended the person and the person got the admission. The person is currently in the US. So that's like, okay, if you have like a good good experience with your supervisor. I know I also did that for like a friend of mine. So like if you have a good experience with your supervisor, that is something you can, both of you can liaise together and talk about. It's not everybody that they admit that they accept. And that is what I tell people, like, as much as these people are trying to see if you are a suitable fit for their school, you're also trying to see if there is suitable fit for your school. I know everybody wants to, I want to jump back, I want to this, I want to do that. But at the same time, you need to, because see, this abroad life is very boring. I'm not going to lie. It's very boring. So, especially if like your course is giving you like an avenue to like, do interview with them. The same way they're asking you questions, you to put them on their toes and ask them questions as well. Like, I used to ask people, how do you support your Black students? And I just pick up the vibe. Like, if you are saying, this, I'm like, no, what have you done for your Black students? Don't say, you have like this number of Black students in your school. That is not showing me support. I'm asking you what you've done for the Black students in your institution. So you want to show them that I'm the prize, particularly if you have like a great application material. Like, you're just like, okay, I'm the prize. I can decide to go to whatever school I want to go to. So yeah.
Yeah, I know of someone that actually got 5 funding and he had to choose one out of everything.
Yeah, I got 5 funding myself.
Wow.
I got 5 funding myself and I had to choose. So,
that's quite interesting.
I got 7. But like 5 was like, I got 7 total funding, but like 2 had deficits and like 5 didn't have deficit at all. I needed to like sit down and choose. I'm like, okay, which one do I want?
Wow, this is quite interesting. Yeah, thank you so much, Ola. So just like a recap, go to the website of the university you're interested in, make your research, find out whether it's just admission only that comes with funding, or whether you also have to like apply for funding separately, and just also be hoping to maybe follow some persons on Twitter, because I know they post things like, we are looking for a graduate or PhD student or master students in this, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's mainly for STEM related courses and all of that. Yeah. So that's just like one of the ways to get funding. So now you also mentioned that they could have 10 admission slots. 8 is funded, while the remaining 2. So do you think self-sponsorship, I know it's possible, because if it's not possible, they won't let the spots open up for people, but do you support that idea, and what do you have to say concerning that? Okay, so for the self-sponsorship, I don't know if I support it or not, but what I would say is, if you have money. But I think how it gets crazy is, you don't have money, but you accept the admission without looking for a means. It's a different thing if you don't have money, but you have a means to pay. But you accepted the admission, you are in the US, and you don't have a means to pay. The way it is in the US, it's not like Nigeria. Nobody is bargaining. Like, the first day of resumption, you should pay your fees. Wow. After 2 weeks, if you don't pay, after 2 weeks, they're already dropping you from the Canva course. And if they drop you from the Canva course, you don't have access to you can be going to class, but you don't have access to submit your assignments. If you have like written quiz, you don't have access to any. Fine, why it is, sometimes you might not even pay your fee like almost immediately, but you need to have a payment plan that, okay, this is the payment plan I want to do. But if you don't have money, you don't have means of paying, there's no way you can stay on that plan. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated when they come to the US and they're like, things are not working out, because you did not settle all the scores before leaving your own country. If you want to get loan from your own country, if you want to get a student's loan, do that before coming to the US. If not, you just come, you just feel like, other people are enjoying, but you are just like working from A to Z. And the funny thing is, US immigration law, that's why I said they are welcoming to international students, but they are also not welcoming, because as welcoming as they are, you can only work for 20 hours. And the 20 hours is you can only work in the school. You cannot work outside of your school. Wow. Outside of your school. You can what if you don't get job inside the school? You oh good. Yeah. I know sometimes you can like write a letter of petition to like international students, but that is like in rare cases. And the school that you are working for,
I think in my own school, I think the highest that people that were working were getting paid, and that was even dining, which is like a very stressful job. It's like I think $15 or $18 in a month. Like $18 in a month cannot pay your tuition. It can only cover for your living
$15 or
not
1,500.
No, $15 per hour. That's what I mean.
Per hour, and that's like 20 hours in a week. And what's the guarantee that you're going to get the full 20 hours in a week?
No, you can even get full 20 hours if you calculate it. Like there's a way people can, or you can't work for more than 20 hours. But the point is, by the time they pay you, also remember that you are not a citizen, so they are also probably deducting tax. Yeah. By the time you get that money, you also need to pay for rent. You need to eat. By the time you remove that money, the remaining money
what is left?
Exactly. So that's what I keep telling people about the US. It's not like UK where you can work and gather your money. In the US, you cannot work to pay tuition. If you don't, the only way you can work to pay tuition is maybe the remaining left from your tuition is like 600 or 1,000 or 2,000. But once it's like 1,000, 5,000,
it's stressful.
It's difficult to work and pay the tuition because it is not realistic. However, in the summer, if you're able to maybe you are able to navigate your way through the first year. In the summer, you can make money because in the summer, you apply for CPT, you're able to work for 40 hours, you're able to work outside of your institution. So that way, you make a lot of money that can cover your tuition. But while you are in school for that first year, you still need to think of how do I want to pay this tuition?
How to survive.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. Wow. So if you're thinking of sponsoring yourself to the US, if you have money, I would just advise you go to maybe a country that's, the tuition is kind of cheaper, because I think tuition in the US is very, very, very expensive. I think they're even more expensive than the UK and all. So, I
think some, because I know there are some cheaper schools, like all these community colleges that are kind of cheaper. So yeah, and the thing is, sometimes too, like I tell people, if God is leading you, because I know somebody that came without funding, nothing, and they got the visa, and like this person is even an example of grace, because this person just kept going to like the professor's office, and they were able to I don't have money, and they were like, okay, they are going to waive the tuition fee for this year. Yeah, for this semester, and like next semester they will get them an assistantship. And I'm just like, this is just a story of
God. Yeah.
Like not everyone that is that lucky. So that's why I'm like, okay, except if God is saying, okay, go. If God is saying go, of course, you know that He's going to take care of you. Because I'm not going to also remove the God factor away from it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very much important. I also mentioned that in one of the videos I made with someone that it's not just about saying you want to travel abroad. You have to be sure of where God is leading you. Even if you say, I want to go to US, Canada, UK, considering and balancing it. What if God doesn't even want you to leave your country in the first place? So all of these are like very, very, very much important. Thanks for bringing that hope. I really do appreciate it. So the next question I would be asking is, what is the educational system like in the US? I'm sure there are pros, there are cons, and good things that you think are quite commendable and things that you think should be frowned at. So yeah, maybe you could also compare with Nigeria.
Okay. And
you're even studying education for Christ's sake.
Okay. So I think something that I would say is that